Happy Sunday! Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elysse de Vega. So if you guys know anything about me, you know that I love languages. I love learning languages, studying languages, just weird facts, linguistics. I love meeting new people that speak different languages, whatever. But with the life of a polyglot comes so much turmoil and like internal stress that you don't ask for. I did not ask for this life, it simply happened to me. So one thing I've learned after learning languages for so long is that it kind of gets hard sometimes to figure out when you're making progress. What are the signs of progress? Especially if you study 2 or 3 extra languages, just because different languages have different, landmarks when you feel like you're making progress, and it can get super confusing at times. So people have asked me this question before: Elysse, how do you know if you're making progress in a language? What are some signs, some signals, some evidence that you can, feel like you're making progress in any type of sense? And while there is that gut feeling when you just know, because, if you're studying constantly, you should, just be monitoring and recognizing your own journey with it and stuff like that. But there are some, concrete evidence, like tips, I guess, if you want to say. So today I think I have 10. It's like 10 things that I've thought of just from my own experience. Everybody loves a good discourse, am I right? So without further ado, we're just going to jump in. These are my 10 signs that you're making progress and getting better in any language. So the first sign that you're making progress in a language is that you stop translating. Yes, I feel like it seems the most obvious, but you no longer have to start from your native language to understand it. You keep it all in one channel and you just see the language for what it is. It makes the reading process, it makes the listening process, any type of process, it makes it so much easier when you don't have that sort of relay time to go back into your native language. It's no longer, using a liaison to understand it. It just comes naturally. And that's something very beautiful. So like, for example, the other day I was speaking to my friend in Portuguese and I said, vamos ver o que acontece. I was saying, let's see what happens. And acontece is the subjunctive form of the verb. And I didn't, think about putting the verb in the subjunctive. I just did it because I realized that it was a conditional situation and, the thing didn't happen yet, so I needed to use that form of the verb. If you don't know what the subjunctive is, it's kind of confusing, just my example, but trust me, it's one of those things that I had to, consciously think about the sentence, and now it just comes naturally. So that's one super good sign. Is also in production and understanding, you no longer have to have your native language as a checkpoint. Super simple. It's when, you start integrating it fully into your brain. Okay, the second sign that you're making progress in a language is that you can recognize different accents or regions, not just by sound, but also by vocabulary. Sound is the first step, but being able to recognize, these words from other countries or different regions means that you're going beyond and, making cultural references and seeing the fundamental differences between the different groups that speak your target language. Seeing the fundamental differences and also recognizing trends. So for example, I know that Mexican Spanish has a lot more CH words that start with CH, than other dialects of Spanish. For example, like chafa, which means cheap, chido, which means cool, chamarra, which is like a coat or an over thing, chale, just random things like that. So when I hear these words, I'm thinking, oh, that person's probably from Mexico, because I'm matching it to, the experience that I have with that vocabulary. But this type of knowledge and accumulation never stops, because, I've been speaking... Like, for example, recently I learned that Chileans have an extra weird conjugation for tú, which means tú. It means you. So instead of saying tú estás, they say tú estás. I've barely met any Chileans, so I don't expect myself to know that, but I was just like, what? So from now on, I know that if I meet a person that's talking like that, they're most likely from Chile or just that region in general, and I'm like, hey, now I have something to talk about. Okay, the third sign that you're making progress in a language is that you can think of multiple synonyms for a word. So it's easy enough to learn a word from your native language to the target language, but once you, can compare and find a range of ways to express a certain phrase or a certain word, that's when you're truly making progress, because people don't just speak in one way in any language. There's always multiple ways to express a point, because like, for example, we don't always just say rip. We could also say tear, or instead of saying sit down, you could say have a seat. So learning different ways to express different things is super useful, and it means you're making progress because you can recognize it better when people say it to you, and you can also reproduce it. So it's like, you're sounding native. Win-win. Since I love examples so much, an example is that I was reading my Latin American Civilization textbook, and this is a textbook in Spanish, and so I get super good vocab because, you know, there's different words for everything. So I was reading the book and I saw the word retorno, which means return, but I also thought, oh, I already know 2 other words for that, vuelta and regreso. But, you know, I still wrote it down and I still made a note of it just so I would be able to recognize it next time, and also I might remember it and maybe be able to use it. But with some words, like if it's a word that, even the first word that I know for it, I never use, I usually just don't make a note of it because I'm like, I don't speak, you know, fancy all the time. I'm not likely to, you know, remember this because I never really talk about this in general. If it's like a super scientific term or it's talking about like knights and noblery, I don't even know. I'm most likely not going to write it down just because I need to save that brain cell for like a different word. Just make sure it's a word that, you know, you're gonna use, a common word. But if it's like sacerdote, which means, I don't even know how to say that in English. Sacerdote, it means priest. It means priest. I know I just went down on a tangent, but yes, synonyms are super important. So if you know them, that's a huge sign of progress. Okay, so the 4th sign that you're making progress in a language is that you can return to a piece of media that you didn't understand before, and then you can understand it after. Sounds kind of confusing the way I'm describing it. So let's say you decide to start learning a language and you immediately find maybe a book or news articles or YouTube videos or, you know, anything, and you don't understand it at first, and that's completely fine. So what you do is you bookmark it on your laptop in the bookmark section, and then let's say that after 2 weeks of studying, you revisit it and you see maybe that you can understand a new word, maybe you understand a new different conjugation, anything like that. You can check your progress little by little by just saying, hey, there's, you know, I recognize that I didn't recognize before. And it's really cool because let's say you have like a news article or you have maybe a video that you don't understand, and then a year later you watch it and you have absolutely no problem understanding it. So it's like that sweet nostalgia while also being like, hey, I've come so far. It's super good and convenient because it's a pressure-free way to check, you know, what's happening in your language journey. So make sure that you're consuming media because it'll help you become more familiar with the, you know, native speakers. It'll help you become more familiar with the cultural context in which the language is spoken. Just because, you know, news articles in that language are most likely to cover events that are happening in the countries where your language is spoken. So, you know, it's good because you're learning language and you're also being immersed in the culture and, you know, just getting involved, you know? Okay, so the 5th sign that you're making progress in a language is that you can listen to a song and visualize or even write down the lyrics without having to look it up. This means that you're able to recognize the patterns in native speech. Maybe, you know, they cut certain things off or they meld words together. This way you can practice your listening and writing skills at the same time. I know that when I write my, you know, I'm doing the translations for my Auso Hichimo episodes for my podcast in Portuguese, it's become super important to me that I can understand it, you know, without looking it up first. And I'll only look it up if there's like one sentence that really just like is unintelligible. But for the most part now I can listen to a song and write it down the first or second time listening to it. It's all interconnected, you know, you don't just practice listening, speaking, writing. You know, they can all bounce off of each other and it is all contributing to the same like foundation of knowledge in your mind. That's what's important about learning a language, is realizing that, you know, anything that you do is going to help you improve in other areas. Don't lose heart if, you know, you don't think that your speaking is as good as your writing, or if you don't think that your, you know, listening skills are as good as your reading skills, or I don't know. You know, progress is progress and it's going to be useful to you in some way in the future. So hold on to that. Hold on to it. 6th sign that you're making progress or even becoming fluent in a language is that you can be sarcastic and that you can joke around in that language. Native speakers appreciate it so much when you're able to be an asshole to them and joke around and be sarcastic with them in their native language. They're like, damn, this person is fluent. I have only really reached this in like Spanish and Portuguese, but it's such a good feeling when you're able to just like, you know, be yourself, because I am a very sarcastic and like joking around person, and you know, it really like, it makes you feel bad when you can't be yourself in a language and literally don't have the vocabulary to be funny. And I feel like that's something we don't talk about in the language community a lot, is like, hey, it's not just about, you know, being able to talk and be intelligent. It's about feeling comfortable and feeling native and being able to, you know, bring out different sides of yourself that, you know, are you, but they're nuanced and different because it's in another language. So a big priority for me is that I'm able to be my old sarcastic self in any language. You know, it's not like I'm sitting there and I write down like, okay, 20 jokes that I always say and then translate them. It's just like, you know, just be like, hey, how do I tell you that you're an asshole, but like in a joking way. I love teaching people slang. When they ask me for American slang, I'm like, let me give you the low down. So don't focus just on the progress of like what's in a book. Focus on what's actually happening face to face, over the phone, maybe video chat or whatever, and just be yourself. Focus on the progress that will let you be yourself. So sarcasm, if you can achieve that, super important. So I miscounted and I only have 9, I think. Okay guys, the 7th sign that you are becoming fluent and making progress in a language is that you can self-correct. I know it sounds really, really simple, but just when you look at past recordings or past writings, past videos, anything, yeah, just super simple, being able to recognize immediately, oh, I should have used the subjunctive, or I should have, you know, used a different pronoun, used a different word that maybe is really close to another word that you didn't know at the time. Yeah, super simple, doesn't need a lot of explanation. Self-correction, don't forget it. Penultimate and the 8th sign that you're making progress in a language is that it appears in your dreams. Now this is something that isn't very common. You know, you don't have dreams every single night, so you're not going to dream in a different language every single night, but it has happened to me, you know, like I would say about 10 times in my life that I've had dreams in other languages. I've had dreams where I was speaking Spanish, I've had dreams in French and Portuguese, and I've also even had a dream in sign language, which was so cool. I woke up and I was like, I think that was the most exciting one for me, is when I had a dream in sign language. Just because it means that your brain has stopped seeing the language as like a project or a goal, and it's now seeing it as a form of communication. It's super exciting, and it's like, hey, I had a dream in Portuguese last night. What did you do? Oh, you went out to a party? That's fucking boring. We all have different preferences, that's okay. Okay, so my last, 9th, and final sign that you're making progress in a language is that you can learn in that language. This is like meta. So it's like we are building knowledge on top of knowledge. Catalan is a regional language spoken in Catalonia. It's like the southeastern, I don't know geography, okay? Southeastern Spain, eastern Spain. It is not a dialect of Spanish. It is a completely separate language. Most or all people that live in Catalonia are bilingual in the two. So did you know that Duolingo has a course for Catalan, but it's only available in Spanish. So you can only learn Catalan on Duolingo if you already know Spanish. So I put my Duolingo, when I had the app, into Spanish, and it was available. You know, if your app is in Spanish and you have the Spanish version of Duolingo, the course is available to you. So anyways, learning something in a language, whether it be learning a new language from like a language that's not your own, or just anything, is so good for your mind. It's creating new neural pathways because, you know, you're using knowledge that you have had to put effort into to learn more knowledge. So that's gotta be doing some good, right? So like Alzheimer's, we don't know her. Is this making sense? I feel like I'm not making sense. So like I said, I'm not just talking about learning another language in the language, I'm talking about maybe cooking videos. Learn how to do something in your target language. So let's say that you really love knitting, for example, and you know, you watch these videos in Russian and suddenly you know all the terminology in Russian for knitting. So you've now improved your knitting skills, first of all, that's pretty tight. And also now you can talk to people about knitting in Russian. So if you learn how to do stuff in your target language, it's going to, you know, it's going to improve your vocabulary, and it's also going to just fortify it as a form of communication, and you're going to start feel more comfortable. So if you're capable of enhancing other skills by using a language that you've had to work for, that is when you know that you've reached a very, very comfortable level. Yeah, so that was 9 signs, 9, not 10, that you're making progress in a language and that you're reaching fluency, or, you know, a level that you feel comfortable with. We don't all have to be fluent all the time. So yeah, I really enjoy talking about this type of stuff because it's so important to track your progress. But if you're capable of any of the things that I've mentioned, you should definitely feel so proud of yourself, because learning a language is not easy, especially if you're, you know, not a kid anymore. So definitely just take a moment, appreciate yourself. My love to you. Let me know which of these goals that you guys are capable of, because I'm super interested. Speak to me down in the comments. I want to have a conversation. That's not an option. That's a demand. I'm very kidding. And if you want to, you can follow me on my Instagram or my language Instagram. So the first one is @shortlight. Second one is @Elysse Speaks. That's ELYSSESPEAKS. Yeah, don't follow my Twitter. Just don't. You don't want to follow my Twitter. Okay, so I will see you guys soon, very soon, with another video. If you have any comments, concerns, suggestions, complaints, regrets, insults, I don't care. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you soon. Subscribe, like, and subscribe because I really want to reach 300 subscribers. I've been trying to reach 300 subscribers for like so long. I'm sitting at 297 right now, and I'm like, just a little bit more. I just want to see two fat zeros staring right back at me. Is that so wrong? I don't think it's wrong. Okay, goodbye. Bye.